You're listening to another ambitious Entrepreneur Network.com podcast, the voice for entrepreneurs and small business. Now, onto the show.
Welcome to Industry Thought Leader Podcast. Stand out, be heard, influence. Want to influence real change with your message while become known as an authority in your field? Industry Thought Leader Podcast will show you how. Now, over to your host, Anne-Marie Cross.
And welcome to another episode of Industry Thought Leader Podcast, brought to you by Industry Thought Leader Academy. Stand out, be heard, influence. I'm your host, Anne-Marie Cross, also known as the Podcasting Queen. Now, my guest today says, if you don't make time for your wellness, you will make time for your illness. And joining me on today's show is Brian Johnson. Brian's true passion is public speaking and working with people's lifestyles, their language, and their nutrition with a very unique health coaching skill set through using the understanding of food-based healing and symptom reversal in conjunction with understanding the power of our words through conscious language and sacred body language. Now, on today's show, Brian's going to share how to authentically decipher which emotions are active by using your body and body language. He's also going to help us understand how to use our bodies to create faster rapport-connection-influence. And he's also going to share about the value and importance of body language and how that plays in optimization and our transformation. So welcome to the show, Brian.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
Me too. One of the things that I love to do as my guests come on the show is just for them to give a brief overview of the journey that led them down to where you are today. What was that for you? Was it something that you'd always dreamed of doing, or had circumstances nurtured you into this career path?
Yeah, so great question. Do I have full permission to be fully transparent?
Absolutely. And I'm going to put you on the big screen. I'm going to disappear and give the floor over to you. But
I'm familiar with that. Yeah, I'm familiar with that. So, hey, my name is Brian Johnson, and you heard it. If you don't make time for your wellness, you will make time for your illness. You see, so currently I'm 43. I've been like this 3 different times. And I say 3 different times because I didn't change who I was being along the way. So therefore I had to do it again. So now 43 years young, as in November 15th, and I'm as in good a shape here as I was when I was 30 in this thing here. Now, what does this have to do? Does this have to do with you being in a bathing suit? No. What this does have to do with is giving you the skill sets to help you understand authentically and accurately who you are being. And we're going to do that through some of the most fascinating information I've ever come across in my life. You see, I'm 43. I started doing the health thing when I was 7 years young. This is what I know. It's all I know. Matter of fact, I dove into it. I had a gym membership to World Gym in the 7th grade when I worked out with my older brother. I used to work out with my dad in the garage when I was 7. So it's just something that I always did. Well, I also got punched in the face a few times when I was smaller. So that led me to a desire to get bigger and to change my experience. And over the years, it led me through a lot of different things, a lot of stuff with nutrition, helping people to understand how to reverse symptoms using grocery store foods, and even emotions and body language, which we'll discuss today. So over the years of doing this for, it's probably 34, 35, 36 years, somewhere around there, I have seen a lot of amazing things happen, and a lot of times with some very basic things that most people just don't know much about. So with that being said, let me give you a little bit of things about I've had to overcome along the way, because I really don't expect you to hear me until you know me, right? So some things that I've experienced over my years of being 250 pounds 3 different times. Being suicidal. I almost died at least 10 times. I've had a lot of crazy experiences in my past, mostly self-induced. And by the grace of God, I'm alive to actually have a conversation with you about them today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you some of the most potent tools I found for transformation of myself, people that I get to support and love. And the beauty of it is that you can use these yourself, which is why I love them so much. Because look, if you're not able to upgrade yourself, how are you going to be able to help someone else do that? Pretty simple, right? So
look, I love that you shared that. And the reason why I wanted to get you on the show was I know that this has been a very stressful year for many people, a lot of uncertainty, and that additional stress can really impact the way that we're looking after ourselves, our well-being. And also too, I think as business owners, the busier we get often and the more committed we get to our role, one of the things that we'll often give is our care, whether it be, mentally and physically. And I think to be at our best holistically, we have to be mindful of all of our lives holistically. So you talked about the word authenticity and authentically already, but let's talk about how we can authentically decipher which emotions are active by using our body and body language. Share a bit more about this, Brian.
Yeah, so here we go. So I would get some notes, get a pen, do something, because what I'm going to share with you is 4 of the tools I use every day. So when someone calls me, one of my clients, and says, hey, I've got some blah, blah, blah going on, this is what we do. Because until you're familiar with where you're at emotionally, meaning what's operating, you're not going to be able to move forward congruently because you're not operating in your current reality. Make sense? Pretty simple. Okay. So number 1, if you have tightness in your throat, this is where sorrow, sad, or grief shows up at. Okay, and we'll dive into some more code, but let's just lay some framework first. So throat, sorrow, sad, or grief. Okay, now if you go down from your throat just a little bit, like if you find that little notch in your throat and you go down about 1.5 inches, right there in the center of your chest, I have my sternum right in here, and then I have halfway between there and my throat, I have a little place called my thymus. Okay, when fear shows up, it shows up right here. Like somebody just went right in my chest. Tightness, tension. Okay. Now, fear can also show up in your stomach like you're hungry. This is important. Like I said, I've been 250 pounds 3 different times because I love to eat. What I did not know, the reason why I was eating so much was because I had fear active, but I did not know that's what it was. So pay attention. If you've already eaten and you find yourself still hungry, ask yourself, am I eating out of fear or am I actually hungry? Because fear is one of the most prominent and prevalent emotions that you will probably get to do most of your work around, because that seems to be pretty common. I mean, I've been blessed to serve well over 100,000 people, and that's a pretty common thread, fear. Okay, so sorrow, sad, grief, fear here, and fear in your stomach. The next one's going to be in your back. Your back is where anger shows up. One could say burden, one could say resentment, frustration. Anything from the anger perspective and the different variations of it, frustration, rage, all of those, okay, will show up on your back. Now, let's give you a little bit more code so you can understand some specific things, okay? So with body language, let's give you this. So if you were to cut your line, or if you were to put a line right down the center of your body, the right side of your body is your masculine side or your doing side, okay? The left side of your body is your feminine side or your receiving side. Now, everything on your body represents something emotionally, okay? So now, touch your left palm. Ladies, your left palm is about you. Men, your right palm is about you. They're both about you. And I'll explain this. Wherever you have a contraction or a muscle closes into itself, so palm, forearm, bicep, all of the front of your face, your neck, all of your chest to your hips, your hamstrings, your calves, and the bottom of your feet are about you, which means when you're scratching or you have a pain or you have an issue or a symptom on one of these areas I just discussed, that's going to give you some extremely valuable emotional data to help you understand what your emotional body is attempting to communicate to you. Okay? Now, let's go to the other part. So we talked specifically about what areas of the body represent you. Now let's talk about what areas of the body represent others. Okay, so we talked about left side, female. Okay, now the other areas that we didn't talk about: back of the hand, back of the arm, back of your tricep, the back of your head, your back, all the way to your butt, both of your quads or your thighs, the top of your shins, and the top of your feet are about others, okay? If it's on the left, it's about another female or about being able to receive, okay? If it's on the right, meaning you have one of these areas where you're scratching or you have a skin issue or something, maybe a broken bone, maybe a pain or an issue or some tightness, all of that can be translated specifically into emotional code, okay? So right side is going to be about other men, meaning you have a challenge with another male figure, or it could be about what you're doing. And it actually could be both, okay? Now, how will you know? Well, you'll know by using the body language pieces, because your emotional body is going to give you the facts, the accurate information. Your objective would be to take the story that you're telling yourself and run it through the body language filter first, so you can say, oh, my throat's tight. What did Brian say? He said that was anger? No, he said that was sorrow, sad, or grief. Okay, do I have any sorrow, sad, or grief? Actually, I do. I noticed that I had some grief yesterday or some sadness. And here's how you'll know. When you're talking to yourself or thinking to yourself, when you're thinking, is it sad or is it grief? Your body's going to tell you yes. It's going to give you emotion. It's going to give you a feeling. The objective here is to be able to actually understand it and to decode it and to be able to move forward with that new piece of information. Okay, does that make sense so far?
Yeah, it makes total sense.
Great.
One of the things, as you're sharing that, Brian, sometimes what a lot of people do is they may be aware of a certain emotion like fear or grief or so forth, and rather than dealing with it, what we end up doing is kind of stuffing it or ignoring it. And the body has a way of dealing with things eventually, doesn't it? And that will often come in disease.
Yeah.
Amazing. So so you went to number 3 back, this kind of the anger. Was there a number 4, or were the 3 things that because I've been taking notes here?
Oh, great. Well, there you can use, so when I say 4, there's 3 spots. Well, there's 4 spots. So we did throat, remember, so throat, sorrow, sad, or grief. So you'll have 3 potential emotions for this area. And then again, when you're finding it out, once you notice you have tension here, the next thing is, okay, well, do I feel sorrow? Do I feel sad? Or do I feel grief? My body's like, you see my head go, yes. I didn't do that on purpose. So potentially, maybe I have some grief active. I did to do some work on it and figure that out. But you'll know because your body is going to give you the code. Wow, this is amazing. When I share this little ninja trick with you, watch how frequently you use this and be like, oh my God, this is really going on. Yes, there are actors and actresses that get paid millions of dollars to act, and they're saying something that should be doing one of these, and they're doing one of these. Honey, I love you, and
yeah.
More is caught than taught, okay? So being able to, in your own expression, recognize when you're being inauthentic. It doesn't mean that you're lying. It just means that what you're thinking and what you're feeling may not necessarily just be as congruent as what it could be, okay? Now think about this. Your subconscious is 95% of the 100. Your conscious mind, or our thinker, is only 5% of that. Our thinker is what's going to put in the tools, and our subconscious is what's going to help to kind of bring these things up so you can start to use the data to be able to plug the dots. So if you're open-minded to it, I'm feeling called to share something with you in the same lines, but what we're going to talk about is how you can actually take fear and shift it. Is that okay?
Go for it. Because
fear,
we fear that, no, fear is in the chest, the center of the chest.
That's right. Or in your stomach. If you feel hungry and you're not, and you already ate, know that there's a high probability that's going to be fear, okay? So here's what happens. Let's say I'm doing my thing, and let's say I'm driving around, and I notice I have fear come up. I notice that because my state changes, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I'm not at peace. Stepped into fear, could have picked it up from someone, could have got out, who knows? It's everywhere. It's propagated, and it's marketed to, okay? So fear is going to show up here. So I got to make sure that I've got the right location and the right emotion. That way you can, well, you'll know, because what I'm about to show you is going to take the feeling in your body, and we're going to shift it through words and through a specific syntax or order of words and a law, and be able to shift it in real time and watch the feeling that's tight go away immediately. Sometimes that's pain, sometimes that's issues, and we can talk about stories in a second, but here, let's do this. So here's me coaching myself, because, and always remember this, all coaching is self-coaching. Even when I'm coaching clients, I'm coaching me. I'm coaching my experience of my client, because the minute I go outside of me, I'm already off my mark. If you think about this one law, if you're not one, you're not mine, which means, in my perspective and belief, that there is one emotional body on the planet, or one subconscious body on the planet. Even though there's 8 billion of us individually, we're all connected. So when you're able to understand that and adjust yourself accordingly, you will notice some amazing things happen. Okay, so let's go ahead and go through. I'd love to share this tool with you so you can use it, because it works. Okay, and it's very simple. So I'm a huge scripture person, not a religious person. I'm a huge scripture person, and we'll talk about this for a second. There's a scripture that says, perfect love casteth out fear. Okay, an example, we're going to use that law with these tools right now so you can understand and you can experience how quick they work. Okay, so fear, when loved, transmutes or flips into what? This is the biggest theme, if you will. If you walk away with anything today, trust me on this, and just give yourself 1% permission just to trust me, and I'll earn the other 99. So here's what I mean by that. So when you have fear active, you're going to say, I give myself permission to feel my fear, and it's okay. Now, the okay part is really helpful, because that okay part allows you just to relax. It works amazing. Okay. Now, we're going to use the phrase perfect love casteth out fear. So once I get my body off the charge, meaning where I'm not involved in a heavy duty emotion, I need to be able to take the charge off of it. That's why I give myself permission to feel my fear, and it's okay. Or I give myself permission to feel my sorrow, sad, or grief, or my anger. All of those will be applicable. Okay, and it's very basic. Once you understand the 3 or 4, you really don't need much more than that. Okay, so now I give myself permission to feel my fear, and it's okay. And I choose to love my fear into my courage and my faith. All I'm doing is using my words consciously in conjunction with the law scripturally. And what happens is when I'm able to articulate that and tell myself what I would like to do with my fear that's currently present on my vehicle, I would like to love it into my courage and my faith. And when I say that, my body goes, okay. Or I take a deep breath, or I notice that the tightness that was there, just, it's gone immediately. Now, think about this. Let's say, and here's why you heard me say always go back to your body versus what you're thinking. And here's why. I've had a lot of people, at least 100 at this point, because I've been testing this. I've had at least 100 people come to me and thinking that they had a lot of anger going on. I said, perfect. Okay, let's talk about it. I said, first off, before we talk about the story, which I'm not ever interested in, when we do work together and you message me for something, I don't ever have to know the story. I don't need to know the story. I just need to know what you're feeling, and then I can navigate it from there, which means I don't have to get into details, okay, which is great. Now, if you see me scratching my nose a lot, which I am, I can, I will, I can, I will. Here's some code for you. I will, I can. And when I start talking and teaching, I can, I will, I can, I will. So I itch my nose a lot, and I itch my nose a lot. So I'm just telling you, like, I itch my nose a lot. I'm like, it itches. And I will. So you know, when you're using these tools tomorrow and throughout your lifetime moving forward, when you're doing this, I will, I can. Oh, I will, I can. That's your spirit using your instrument to communicate. Okay, hold your little finger up, your right finger, your index finger. This is your direction. Okay, the phalange, meaning could be cut into 3 different pieces. This is your thoughts. This is about practical execution, and this is physically related to self. So every time I'm touching in a different spot, that's different code that's being emitted into your body to pull or retract the information that's in your subconscious mind. Okay, fascinating. Okay,
yeah,
it's crazy.
neuroscience, they're only just kind of starting, well, for a while now, to see aspects of the different parts of the brain triggering different aspects, memory and yeah, all of that kind of stuff. So
it's amazing. And if we have time today, we can talk about a couple of eye tricks that you can use, NLP stuff that I've been using that's been phenomenal. Because here's a quick tool. When people are talking, their eyes are doing different things. They're looking to the left, looking to the right, looking down. All of that is retrieving information. If someone is looking up to the left, that's a visual recall or remember. If someone's looking up to the right, that's visual construct or make up. Doesn't mean lying. You would require more questions to get more feedback, to see the inconsistencies in body language and demeanor to get that type of information, but not necessary on this one. So when you're looking either to your left or to your right, if you're looking to your left at your ear, like literally looking straight ahead and looking to your ear, that's your audio remembering. So I'm a huge audio person. When I'm brainwashing myself with stuff or locking down new tools and things to remember so that I can just embody them and be them, whether I'm consciously aware of it or not, what happens is I will look to my left to download the audio version most effectively. When I'm doing decrees, like out of my little green book, I will look down to my right, which is your kinesthetic world, which is your feeling world, which is your body. Why is that important? Well, your feeling world is what's moving the needle. That's what's moving or attracting, if you will, your experience in the form of people, circumstances, situations, and events that match how you feel. So when I can be aware of what I feel, can we agree it's a lot easier to change it into something that's more beneficial and something that's more enthusiastic, right? This is what we're talking about. I have not seen anything work faster than body language. And I've got a lot of time invested in all kinds of stuff. And I stopped everything I was learning when it came to body language because of how fascinating it is. Okay.
Right. So yeah, I was just going to say, as you're sharing, I remember because I've studied NLP too, and now fascinating. I remember one of my teachers or mentors saying that she was talking to a young child and the mother had brought her there because he had been struggling, changed schools, or was in the process of changing schools, but the mother noticed that he was starting to become more withdrawn. And, so my mentor was talking to him and, he was saying, I'm never going to make friends, of looking over that way, never going to make friends. And she said, well, who told you that? Said, my best friend told me that I'm never going to make friends like him in my new place. She was able to see that because he was audio recalling, But what you're talking about, that the feeling and the K, sometimes it can also work because if you want to shift some of that, the sadness, someone keeps looking that way, look up to disconnect that feeling of sadness too can be quite helpful for you. But
yeah, I agree with that totally. Now, you just cued me for something. I'm going to put another layer. Are you ready for another layer? This is exciting. Okay. What we're going to talk about now is we're going to add the audio code to the physical code we just discussed. Example, when Anne-Marie was talking, you're perfect. You don't have a stuttering problem. That's your body giving some code, and I'm going to help you understand it. So when you're hearing it, you're like, oh, wow, my body's giving me some code. Here's what I mean by that. When people stutter, they typically don't have a stutter problem. It's not what it's about. It's actually your higher self using your body verbally to hopefully get your attention. And when you understand the code, it sure is a lot easier to get your attention, right? But if you don't know, you don't know. I didn't know what I didn't know until I knew. And then I'm like, oh my God, everyone should know this. And it should be taught in school because of how profound it is on your own self-discovery and soul mastery is what I will say. So here's what I say. The code, to stutter, 1, 2, and, hey, whatever it is, the word's pretty irrelevant from my experience so far. 2 represents apathy, which means I can't, this is too hard. Now, that accompanies some very interesting physical symptoms, lymphatic issues, snotty noses, allergies, lymphatic carcinomas, cancers having to do with lymphoma system is in my experience, the belief system of I can't, this is too hard. Now, do you mind if I share with you one of the most potent upgrade tools that my coach shared with me that every one of my clients said, oh my God, this is amazing. Can I share it with you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I didn't figure you'd say no, but let's do this, all right? This is great.
Yeah.
Yeah, ask first. So, all right, so here's what we're going to do. So when you have the I can't, this is too hard, or you notice yourself stutter twice, hey, first off, be thankful that you're catching the code. Okay, that's number one. The upgrade is, remember, it's always about what's returning emotionally, not what's wrong, what's returning. When I can get out of the here's the right or wrong piece and I can step into grace, which is where I'm approaching this from and instructing you from that perspective to be able to go from right or wrong into, oh, well, what's just my highest choice? Much better. We eliminate the charge negatively and labels and all of that. Okay, so what I'm saying, when you have a two stutter or you're having lymphatic issues, say to yourself, I choose to make this fun and easy. My coach, he taught me a gazillion things, but that's one of the things I use the most because look, can we agree? Life is going to happen. And when you have a couple of simple 1-degree shifts, language-wise, in my opinion, it allows you to change the rudder of your ship. So you can change the direction and ultimately the destiny. And I found language is the fastest way to upgrade or downgrade your experience, mine included. Okay, so when you have a two stutter, that's I can't, this is too hard. What's returning is I choose to make this fun and easy. Okay, that's number one. Three stutter. Now remember, when we have sorrow, sad, or grief, quiz number one class, do you remember where sorrow, sad, or grief shows up at on your body of one of those 3 points? Where'd you get it?
Yeah. The
Oh, you got it. Yeah, you go. Coach has got it. All right, so Anne-Marie got it. Throat. Okay, so you got sorrow, sad, or grief. Now, most times people are disconnected. They just are. So they're not going to feel what's going on here. This is why your body is giving you the audible code to have another entry point to help you understand where we're out of alignment and what's returning. Okay, so if I have a 3 stutter and hey, immediately check in with yourself. I heard it. Now, do I feel it? Oh, I do feel it. I have it in my throat. Okay, I give myself permission to feel my sadness, my grief, and it's okay. And I'll go ahead and teach you the upgrade now so you have it in your arsenal. And I choose to love my sorrow, sad, or grief into my joy. And I give myself permission to move forward. That will be an example of a syntax or a language code that would allow me to utilize the data from the 3 stutter, also from the tension that will be in my throat representing sorrow, sad, or grief on my body, presently active emotionally. I can use that information to identify what's returning. But I don't know what's returning until I get clear on where I'm at. That's why, trust me on this, condition yourself for yourself to always go back to you. Not what you think you is feeling, what you is actually feeling. Here's what I mean by that. Back to the anger story, okay? So I had a lot of people come to me for anger. I'm like, okay, let's do it. So first off, what do you feel in your body? Do you have any tightness in your back or your neck? Nope. Okay, and you ain't got anger. Where do you feel tightness at? Oh, I feel tightness in my throat. Interesting. Here's where it gets interesting. From my experience, you test this because I know you'll find some value in this immediately. So when someone has anger, from my experience, that's not the original emotion. Meaning, if we did work on the anger, we wouldn't solve the issue because that's not the original catalyst. What is the original catalyst? Since their throat is what's firing off, remember, touch your body language first, not what you're thinking. Stories come into play. Your body's going to tell you the truth. That's why body language is so golden. Okay? When you have body language here, this is where sorrow, sad, or grief shows up. Specifically, I choose to love my sorrow into my joy is important. But no, when someone has anger, I have found this to be 100% accurate on everyone I've tested this on. They actually felt rejected or had sorrow first. Anger was a secondary mechanism as a protection agency, or as some way to put up a guard. It's like, you know.
I might have said something and they didn't get an opportunity to perhaps respond and dialogue. And
All of those are potentials. Just from what I have found, it will save you some time. Obviously, test all things. Don't just take my word for it. Prove all things and hold fast to that which is true. So when you have anger or you think you are angry, check in with your body and see what you notice. And more than likely, there's going to be some tightness here because you felt rejected or something of that nature. And if it's not that way, tell me, because I'd love to know the story and what's going on, because I haven't found it to be in it. I haven't found it to be different just yet. Not to say it won't be, but who knows?
What's helpful about what you've just shared there, Brian, is that often then people would be looking for a resolution or support to deal with that anger. And yet if they're not dealing with the cause of anger, which, as you said, is something that's happened to them that caused them to initially feel grief, sorrow, sadness, or sorrow, as you said, rejection first, then obviously you would find that would trickle down and relieve the anger as well.
Yeah. And you'll notice, so if you were doing the work on the anger for something that was not active in your back, you'll feel the same. Nothing's going to change. But when you do the work on the sorrow, the sad, or grief, once you identify which one it is of those, your throat will immediately go away. Yes. The tightness will go away because your body says, okay, you got it. Think about this. Your body is just like the dashboard of a car. And every time a light comes on for something, it's giving you feedback to let you know, hey, we need to put some oil in your car, we need to put some air in your tire, whatever, maintenance work, whatever it may be. Your body's exactly the same way. So every time you're scratching and itching and stuff like that, you can actually use that information and objectively align your decisions with what your higher self is communicating to you is the best way to take and to use body language. Now, you can use it for a lot of stuff too. Like here, let's say, for example, that you are here. A lot of people think they love themselves and they don't. I was this person. I did not know. When my coach asked me, Brian, do you love yourself? I said, of course. That's not a yes. And as he asked me that, I literally had every experience over the last 13 years where I almost killed myself from drugs and crazy, stupid stuff. All of them flashed right in front of my eyes in a second. I was like, oh, duh, of course you don't. I'm like, okay, well, that makes sense. But here's the thing. I didn't know. I didn't know that I didn't know. So the most valuable thing I could part with you right now is this very simple question. If I ask you, do you love yourself? What's your response? Some people say yes. Some people say no, and they know they don't. That's perfect. At least you know your current moment of now. Now you can make a new choice. But look, the most important thing I could possibly help you do of anything is to help you get clear on when you stopped loving yourself. Body language is amazing for this, because once I can identify when I stopped loving myself, I can use my body to determine what emotions are wrapped up within that experience. So I can go back and shift it and change it, and ultimately bring the segmented pieces or the fragmented pieces of me connected to create one whole being. And this is why body language is so important, because if someone's out of alignment on step one, meaning loving myself, which a lot of people are, everything you do is going to be out of alignment. Everything. It's the foundation or the capstone to excellence that must be in place authentically to be able to move forward and to be able to extract the juice out of the tools and things that I'm sharing with you. Now, here's a couple things to be mindful of. Let's say, for example, you're talking to yourself in the mirror and you're like, I'm wondering if I love myself. Here's how we're going to find out. If it's not a yes, yeahs and sures are not true communication. Yes and no is. That means when I say yes, my conscious mind and subconscious mind are on point. If someone says yeah or sure, absolutely, absolutely what? Absolutely yes, absolutely no. Language is a big deal. Our language, in my opinion, has been consciously constructed by deconscious or unconscious people to keep humans stuck. because our language is the very thing that creates perpetual trances and perpetual self-sabotage and issues that until I can understand the code and I can make new choices and new word shifts, you're not going to. It's important to understand that language will shift the vibration or the feeling at where every ounce and cell and every piece of liquid and hydration and fluid in your body will shift all of that. Yeah. Language is a really huge deal. Conscious.
And I'm touching my nose because I've got hay.
I can, I will. Look, that's left in. So you're receiving. I can, I will, and receive. I will receive direction. And it's from others.
Yeah. Something that you just mentioned, and I don't know, and we'll share how people can get with you, obviously, there on the link, brianjohnsoncoaching.com. But as you're sharing that, and I went like this, and I was, I realized what I was doing. I never wipe with my right; it's always the left.
Let's talk it. So, which one did you use?
The left, because normally because I'm writing with something with right-handed.
Well, it makes sense because look at the context. Okay, so what I was doing was delivering something that your spirit says this is valuable. So left hand receiving direction, others is going to be on the top of the hand. Depending upon what part of the phalange was most used would also be another layer of info. But just know I can and I will receive direction. Okay. And let's break a couple more pieces down too, because I think these would be really useful. And they are so basic when you get it, like, God, this has been around since day one. Yes. Why are we not taught this? Okay. So here, hands are about handling. Wrists are about being flexible with handling. Your head represents thinking, knowing, and remembering. Your neck connects your thinking, knowing, and remembering with your doing. When someone has neck issues, they're either thinking about something they don't want to do, doing something they don't want to think about, or not sure how to do what they are thinking about. You can break things down more than that, but with these few basic fundamentals, you can be deadly to the illusion. Okay? So you have your torso, which is your body, including your arms. That's about doing. Your hips connect your doing with your moving. Your feet are about understanding. And your ankles are about being flexible and understanding. So when someone has a leg issue, there's a high probability they're not understanding how to move forward with a male figure or with what's being done. If it's right side, if it's left side, there's a potential of not understanding how to move forward, receiving emotionally, spiritually, financially, sexually. Any of the receivings are all in there. And anything out of love, you will shut off your ability to receive. So if you start having blown out biceps and stuff, or you blow a whole piece of your arm off and stuff, make no mistake, your body is trying to tell you something. It's just a matter of, are you open-minded enough to be, what is my body trying to tell me? Because I can tell you this much, it will cost you dearly if you don't, and it will save you a lot of wasted time, effort, pain, potentially injuries, symptoms, and diseases when you do. Because the whole reason I blew my arm out, here, I'll finish this real quick because it'll be important. The whole reason I blew half my bicep off my arm is because I had stuff that I was still emotionally hot about, that I hadn't processed about my relationship. And I went into my garage, was banging around on my punching bag by myself, and completely rolled up half my bicep in my shoulder. And I'm like, yep, I know what that was about, because I created 2 car wrecks the same way. Resentment, frustration, and anger. So no. Whenever you have feelings that are intense like that, you got to be really careful, because that intensity is what brings about the experience faster. And if that is a negative intensity, there's a probability you might get yourself one of these situations I just mentioned before. So go ahead.
When you were speaking about that, one of the things that come to mind, and we don't have to talk about that now, but just for people to be mindful of, we know that a lot more young people are carrying these devices around and looking down. I've got a few colleagues who are chiropractors and physiotherapists and so forth. So these young people are causing physical issues with their necks anyway, and doing a lot of sitting over our desks. Will that inhibit what you were just talking about? Number one, they may not be able to feel pain so much because they're constantly in pain because of the way that they're sitting.
Well, that's a great question. Here's what I found. what I have found is things happen in consciousness first before they show up in the physical experience. So if, let's say, since we're talking about a kid who's doing the whole foveal, so foveal is a line of vision. Foveal is very like close.
Yes.
Peripheral is going to be up where you have more access. A simple thing to help combat that is something I'm working with myself, is actually just holding my phone up here when I look at it versus me looking down that way. That's one thing. But think about this too, and I can send you a picture of this if you choose to dive deeper into it. Every vertebrae, every tooth means something in consciousness or emotionally. Every vertebrae, literally, you can go through, and I have materials you can go through and look at it. And why is this important? Well, first off, I didn't know it even existed. Two, to think that you could get that specific on what's going on in someone's state of being, to use a vertebrae or a tooth that's acting up and get some feedback on what's actually going on underneath the hood that's causing the situation, that's golden. So to the kids part, if you are watching this and you're a child, or you're even for just a habit perspective, hold your phone up so you can get your eyeballs up here, because it's going to make a big difference in your neck. I mean, I have a stand-up desk. I stand up pretty much all the time now, and I can tell you that that's helpful too. But also know, if you get an injury, it's emotional from my experience. And I've served a couple 100,000 people at this point, and I'm not saying that as one of these. I'm saying that I say, look, here's what I found. If your body's breaking down, there's something going on emotionally that you're unaware of, in my experience.
Fantastic. And I know you've just scratched the surface anyway with what you're talking about. People could find out more, as you said, brianjohnsoncoaching.com. Are there any other areas or places that they can connect with you? What's your favorite platform, Brian? Do you have a favorite platform that people can?
It's funny you say that, because I was thinking about that. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to leave my cell number so you can just text me directly, and I'll tell you to connect with me. Go to my website, brianjohnsoncoaching.com. You can find my social media feeds from there. You can set a time and book a time for us to chat. And I always do a free conversation with anyone who's committed to doing the work. I'll invest the time and see what ways I can help you out, at least give you some tools as a bonus from me. I also have a group on Facebook called High Performance Habits for entrepreneurs and business owners. It's all entrepreneurs, leaders, and business owners, and I share some of my most potent tools and tactics. So connect with me on my website first. That way you can get to the other ones, and I think from there we can kind of maneuver around and do that. But I'll give you my cell phone number. If you don't call me, text me, because I keep my phone off because of the amount of calls. But if you text me, I'll get it, and then we can set a time to chat. It's simple. My number is 512-203-5598. Just text me first. That way I will for sure get it, because if you send me a message or you leave me a voicemail, I'm not great at voicemails. Forgive me at that time.
Coming on the show, Brian.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Fascinating for sure. Please connect with Brian. Send him a text, and he will make a time to connect, or we'll certainly go to the website. It's always a good place, because I'm sure there's so much more on there that covers what you've just covered, and even deeper. So thanks once again, Brian, for coming on the show.
Thank you.